Good morning. Welcome to our worship service from the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm Ed Olmsted, and I'm a member of the Climate Action Group and the Society's Vice President. Thank you to everyone in the Great Hall and at home who is helping to make this hybrid service possible. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are guided and inspired by its values and principles. Those values and principles move us to remember that we in Northampton inhabit unceded land of the Pecumtuck and Nipmuc peoples. Our values and principles remind us to acknowledge our responsibility to face the legacies of dispossession and systemic racism that are part of our collective histories, even as we affirm and celebrate the legacies that inspire us. We are here to support and celebrate one another and to renew ourselves with hope and gratitude and new resolve. It's wonderful to see you all here in the Great Hall and online. If you are new or returning after a time away, welcome. Please feel free to fill out a welcome card, which you can put in the offering plate here on the chancel after the service. There's blue cards I forgot to bring one up, but there are blue cards to fill out. Doing that allows us to put your name on our email contact list. For those of you online, there is a link to the card in the chat. Those of you here in person, thank you for wearing your masks and thank you for singing quietly. Please also check the distance between groups of people who came together to make sure everyone is comfortable. We ask that everyone online to keep your videos off except during the greeting in order to help the technology work as smoothly as possible. There will also be a Zoom social hour after the service. And although the UUs are not known for their brevity, when Janet Bush shared her practice of developing 6-word faith statements in her March 6th sermon, it seemed to resonate with the congregation. On May 1st, David McBarrington will be sharing his credo with the congregation, an annual tradition that over time has created many opportunities for us to know each other and be known. We would like to include 6-word statements from members of the congregation in the service as companion pieces to David's credo, illustrating our diversity and our unity. If you'd like to be willing to share your statement, please send it online by April 20th to sabbatical@uunorthampton.org with May 1st Credo in the subject line. For those of you here in the Great Hall, you can write them on the slips of paper in the pews. They're little narrow strips that were in the pews at the beginning. And leave them in the baskets found on the tables at the back of the hall. Please indicate if you'd like your name shared, and we'd appreciate hearing from many of you. And now we will begin our service.
am grateful to be participating in this great web of life. I see how my thoughts, choices, and actions affect me, and I see dimly how they affect others. What I do now impacts what comes next for me and for others. Now we'll have our chalice lighting.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our chalice lighting. For all of our hymns, we ask that those of you in the Great Hall sing quietly, and those of you online, please sing aloud. We light our chalice as a beacon of hope, a sign of our quest for truth and meaning. We light our chalice as a beacon of love in celebration of the life we share together. 100.
Good morning. I'm going to read the story for today. I don't see any children out there, but I think you'll appreciate the story and the illustrations, which I think are beautiful. This is called Follow the Moon Home by Philippe Cousteau and Deborah Hopkinson. I always need help finding my way, especially in a new place. Before long, you'll feel right at home, Viv. I wasn't so sure. Welcome, Vivienne, called Mr. J. You're just in time for the fun. We're looking for a problem to solve. I got out my pencil and bit my lip. I rode my bike all over town looking for a problem. Mostly, I just got lost. On Saturday, I took Samson and Luna for a run on the beach. Mostly, they pulled me. Let's make a gigantic hole, I gasped, plopping down. My big digger and my little digger sprang into action. Suddenly, it was raining sand. Looks like fun, but be sure to fill in that hole, said a man walking by. It's nesting season. I smoothed out the sand, and we all went to look. What do holes have to do with turtles? It's because of the babies, said a voice. I whirled to see a girl from school. I'm Clementine, she reminded me. Baby sea turtles need a clear path to the sea. Holes and sandcastles get in their way. I didn't know we had sea turtles here. Samson pulled on a leash. We do. Oh, and look what happened to this baby, cried Clementine. Why were you going the wrong way, little one? Mr. J had told us to use our own eyes. So that night, Mom and I went back to the beach. As darkness fell, we could see bright lights winking on, one by one, along the shore. That's it, I said. Lights in the beach houses are the problem. Why is that? Mom asked. When baby turtles hatch, they follow the strongest light they see, I explained. So if they head away from the sea, they get dehydrated and die. My heart sank as I stared at the houses. There are so many. How can we ask all these people to turn off their lights? Most of these houses are vacation rentals, Mom said. That means new people come to stay every few days. We'd have to knock on doors every night. Clearly, I needed help to solve this problem. And I knew just how to get it. On Monday morning, Clementine and I raised our hands first. We told the class what we'd learned and observed about loggerhead sea turtles. The sea turtle eggs are starting to hatch, I went on. To save the hatchlings, we need the whole class and the whole town to help. And that's how Lights Out for Loggerheads began. Our classroom became the Loggerhead Lab. First, we gathered lots of information. We read books. We visited an aquarium and a sea turtle hospital. We asked someone from the South Carolina Marine Turtle Conservation Program to speak to our class. We all brainstormed solutions, choosing the best ideas. Then we got to work. We made posters and delivered them all over town. We wrote fact sheets for all the vacation beach houses. To pay for printing the flyers and posters, we held a bake sale. Andy, the coffee shop man, donated a whole pan of his famous granola. Happy to help. The editor promised to put my article in the community newspaper. Nice to have a new writer in town, she said. The printer gave us a discount for the loggerheads. Rebecca and Max learned how to spread the word on the internet. Mr. J helped us write a press release. I was on TV as class spokesperson. We invited volunteers from SCOOT, South Carolina United Turtle Enthusiasts, to a town meeting. For those of you who don't know, a scoot is the part of a shell where there's like the little divisions on top. When the big night arrived, the room was packed. The room buzzed with ideas. We talked about how to make our beach a great place for turtles, how to mark nests, run nightly patrols, what to do if hatchlings get in trouble. At the end, we decided to form our own volunteer group. People cheered for our class. Mr. J beamed. I'm proud of you all. That was the best night ever, until on the last evening of summer school, we went on a turtle patrol. Lots of parents came too. Everyone smiled as we watched the lights along the beach go out one by one. We had done it. Suddenly, a movement on the sand caught my eye. Over here, I whispered. We crept closer, careful to stay quiet. A crescent moon shone on the waves. The sea glittered like silver. I made out first one, then two hatchlings. Soon the sand seemed to boil over with life. Tiny turtles no more than 2 inches long burst from the nest. We watched, barely daring to breathe. Would they know where to go? Then they were off, scurrying over the sand and into the shimmering sea. We stood together, smiling and silent with wonder. Then, just like the turtles, we followed the moon home.
Please rise in body or spirit for our hymn, number 134, Our World is One World.
Our world is one world, one touch
our community greeting. So, stand up, look around, see who's here this morning. And you on Zoom, you can turn on your videos, wave and say hello, and you can give messages in the chat. Be sure you switch to gallery view. And anybody who's new or newish and like to say hello and where you're from. And you can put messages in the chat, which I will read. Who have we got on chat?
Greetings, yes, I can. Nice to see you.
I can't see the chat.
Nobody's there, nobody's.
No, I mean, I can't see the, who's on.
I want to do that, yeah.
I want to do that.
Barrier,
There you go.
something you have to cross over.
Just need to switch it back to speaker at the end, but I can do that.
Thank you. Hello, Susan Martinson in Canandaigua, New York. It's so nice to see you online today. She happens to be my daughter. And Susie McCrae is here, and the Reutmans. And who else we got? Lori Lysell is there. Hello from Jean, Margot, and Simona. And Jackie Velez is here from Springfield. Beautiful story, Molly. Good morning to all from North Salts. I think he's related to one of our participants this morning. Yes. Good, okay. So it's been very good to see you all. Now turn off your videos and we'll go back to the speaker view, and now we're going to have a social justice minute.
Good morning, everybody. This is Sherry Hall Smith. I'm a member of the Racial Justice Team, the Widening the Circle work group, and I'm co-chair of the congregation's Circle of Care supporting the Jumapili family. Reparations. What comes up for you when you hear this word? The Racial Justice Team has been discussing this topic and exploring what it means for us as individuals and what it could mean for us as a congregation. One effort we learned about was the Negro Spiritual Royalties Project that's been established by the United Parish in Brookline. Reverend Andrea Bazian, who's the associate pastor at the Alden Baptist Church in Springfield, wrote about this topic in an article that appeared in the Truth School March newsletter. She said, to comply with copyright laws, every church I've served would have CCLI appear as a line item in the annual budget with $300 next to those initials. CCLI stands for Church Copyright License International. After a church has paid its annual licensing fees, the congregation's welcome to sing copyrighted music during worship services. The church copyright license fee is a way to honor the protection that copyrighted music enjoys and to fairly compensate those who wrote the songs. The question becomes how we compensate African American musicians for music that was never under copyright, much of which was composed during slavery. The United Parish in Brookline explained their project this way. We will begin the practice of collecting royalties for the African American or Negro spirituals we sing in worship. Whenever we sing spirituals at the United Parish, we will collect an offering that will support the development of young Black musicians. This project has now been replicated in a number of other congregations, and our racial justice team is hoping to launch a similar initiative in our congregation next year. The group will be seeking congregational input as to where best to direct these funds. But this is only one small example of attempts at reparation that could be undertaken. Many groups, including the UUA, are offering opportunities to learn more about reparations. There will also be an opportunity to discuss this issue in our own congregation this week. The Widening the Circle work group is hosting the final listening circle of the year this Thursday, April 14th at 7 p.m. The topic will be restoration and reparations. For those of you online, I'll put the Zoom link for the listening circle in the chat, and it also appears in the Sunday Times. Please feel free to contact me if you'd like any additional resources about reparations. Thank you.
Our generosity makes everything we do possible, and it helps us support organizations and movements in the greater community. Half of the proceeds of each week's offerings support the Society's operating budget, and half are shared outside of our walls. You can mail in a check or donate online. The link is in the chat. You may also put cash or a check in the offering plate here on the chancel after the service. Thank you for your generosity. We will now hear the offertory music.
The meditation this morning is from Christian Sundberg's A Walk in the Physical. We are all family. Where we truly come from, we are all family. Spiritually, all of us are part of one incredible whole. We are all not only connected, we are part of one another. This is true no matter what role we temporarily come and play on earth. This is true of every single person we meet. The cashier behind the register, our best friend, the person collecting the trash, the worker in China who makes our clothes, even the neighbor's dog next door. We are all part of one another. The next time you interact with someone who seems a stranger to you, take a moment to be really present with them and try to peer into what they really are. Can you drop all your preconceptions, all your identity labels, and truly see them? Can you sense that you are indeed connected to them? Can you feel the wonderfulness of their unique presence? If you look close enough, past the ideas of your human mind, you just may sense their brightness. And it will speak to something in you too. None of us are truly separate from each other. We are all family.
Good morning. I'm going to read from an article entitled On the Great Green Wall and Being Useful by Charles Eisenstein. The environmental movement as a whole seriously misapprehends the nature of the present ecological crisis. The biggest threat is not carbon dioxide-induced warming. That is merely the most convenient threat, the one that facilitates technocratic and financialized solutions. The biggest threat is the reduction and destruction of ecosystems, soil, oceans, forests, wetlands, and so on at all scales. overfishing, deforestation, mining, tree farms, industrial agriculture, toxic pollution, draining wetlands, coastal development, urbanization, and electromagnetic pollution degrade the living organs of our living earth, rendering her unable to maintain balance. For example, massive deforestation in the Congo and Amazon cripple the biotic pumping function that draws moisture inland from the oceans. Its impairment brings drought to neighboring regions and disrupts climatic flows globally. Megadams, including new ones in Africa, rob downstream ecosystems of flood water and silt, drying out wetlands and impoverishing the land and the people who live there. Overfishing and ocean pollution damage the marine food web, resulting in growing marine deserts where whales and fish no longer exercise nutrient transport functions. A development belt between the Andes and the Amazon cuts off migration corridors and reduces the resilience of the rainforest. Simply put, life itself maintains the conditions for life on Earth to thrive. Life is not at the mercy of geomechanical forces, it sculpts those forces, maintaining homeostatic processes like the water cycle, the carbon cycle, and the nitrogen cycle. It regulates cloud formation, affects winds and currents, and more. Earth has a living physiology. Technical carbon-focused policies often ignore that, viewing life in terms of carbon storage, mostly. Treating Earth as an engineering object, they sometimes make the problems worse with megadams, monocultural biofuel agriculture, and mining operations. These make sense according to superficial carbon math, but do great damage to Gaia's organs. More generally, we ought to be suspicious of industrial solutions to problems caused by industrial systems. We are in a revolution deeper than that, one that restores unique place-by-place relationships between humans and nature. The species and land uses that are appropriate to one region may be harmful to another. The right mix of forests and pastures and croplands for one valley may be wrong for the next. The people who live there usually know best, especially when they can draw on the traditional knowledge of many generations. A mosaic of local projects animated by shared ideas. That may be the motto for the kind of healing that Earth and society need today. Not a single solution that scales up, but an ecosystem of related solutions, each unique to its place. Now, most modern humans, even and especially in highly developed societies, are familiar with the feeling at school, at work, or staring at our phones, I was not put here on earth to do this. We want to be put to higher use. And this is not arrogance. Higher doesn't mean higher than other people. Higher use is vitally frustrated if anyone is exploited, misused, or cast off. An unused life force turns against itself in the form of addiction or depression, or finds an outlet in violence. Often it takes the form of zealotry or a crusading mentality. For society to put people to good use, it must hold a general agreement in answer to the question, what is a human being for? That is the wellspring of ideas that animate the mosaic of projects. It creates the feeling, we know why we are doing this. It is a shared story that encodes shared values. What is The true story, I might say, human beings are a sacred gift, here to serve with love the next unfolding of life and beauty on earth. But that is too vague, too contained, too tidy in the face of the mystery. The time of having no discernible use is coming to an end. Crisis, environmental, social, political, has shattered the sheltering and imprisoning walls of normality. A breeze wafts through the gaps, stirring the feeling, now I know why I am here. For some, this feeling is as yet faint. It will grow stronger, and as the breakdown accelerates.
I love hearing those words. Such a rich voice for our time, Charles Eisenstein, his book, Climate. So, in the Climate Action Group, we're a group. We are a group. And we often ask ourselves, how do we get others to change their practices and habits in a way that is more earth-friendly? And we have a lot of ideas and schemes and so forth. But as I was thinking about it, you know what's happened is we've changed one another in our group. So you're going to hear how that's true. Can we play the...
I'm going to share with you how my husband and I became vegan. We had long ago stopped eating red meat because it is so destructive to our planet, our home. So we continued to eat white meat and fish. We went to a vegan conference because I think we were leaning that way anyway, and we talked to a woman about chickens. She proceeded to tell us that very few male chicks are allowed to live as there is no need for them. They are sent down a conveyor belt in huge numbers, all alive, where they are sliced to pieces. You can imagine the noise, smells, utter confusion. We looked at each other and said, we're vegan.
Being part of CAG has inspired my work with other groups of activists like Climate Action Now and those lobbying for carbon tax legislation. Now I'm searching for ways to speak to and encourage a wider range of people to be part of this massive global undertaking.
Eric Broadbent connected Putin's war in Ukraine with oil, and I took a hard look at the oil footprint in the food I eat. For some years, I have eaten mostly local, organic, and whole foods to support life in the soil and wildlife habitat. But now add petrochemicals, processing, plastics, and transport, which use very significant amounts of oil. And so my shopping habit is supercharged to avoid processed food and find more local and organic sources and restaurants.
I have been inspired to more regularly write letters and send testimony to Massachusetts and United States legislators, thanks to Ed Olmsted's reports on pending legislation and sending links.
Daphne Stevens' urgings are like steady drops of water. Because of her, I have stopped eating meat, started an account at a credit union, divested from any funds with fossil fuel assets, and become more thoughtful about travel. Daphne always provides direction and the details for action.
After my mom passed away, I inherited part of her investment portfolio, which was held in a conventional large bank. I knew that I wanted to channel that money to support initiatives and companies that I believed in, but I needed help with how to do that. Well, Daphne had talked in glowing terms for quite a while about her investment advisor, and so I moved the funds to be managed by that person. That investment firm focuses on socially and environmentally responsible companies. I've now divested all these holdings from fossil fuels and other unethical businesses, and I'm happy to work with someone who helps me make choices that align with my values. Thank you, Daphne.
And because of Molly, I learned about a company called World Tree that actually plants renewable lumber of very high quality for everything from housing to guitars. The trees mature in only 10 years, and then, can you believe it, they grow back. It'll take a decade for World Tree to pay off. But I think I'll leave this investment to the UU.
Because of Ed Olmsted, I learned about Cargill, one of the largest meat distributors in the world, and the damaging effects that they are having on the rainforests in order to create grazing land for cattle. They distribute beef to Stop and Shop, Whole Foods, Burger King, McDonald's. I'm starting a campaign to boycott their products. Anyone want a bumper sticker?
Because of Daphne's longtime enthusiasm for a vegan diet, I have given up pork, beef, and lamb, discovered the delight of tofu, and am pleased that I can compost all of my food waste now.
As you can tell, Daphne has acted as the town crier for CAG, sounding the alarm on every front. A recent article she sent us described a crowd of terminally ill protesters who lay down on railroad tracks to block trains carrying tar sands oil. One woman was threatened with 10 years in jail, and she replied, "I'd like to spend 10 years in jail. I'd like to spend 10 years anywhere. But since that's not going to happen, I'm going to spend the time I have left doing something useful." I find this inspiring.
Let's sing together now. We celebrate the web of life, hymn 175. Why am I here, up here in the pulpit? Like all things, we never know exactly where our words and actions lead or what effect we have. I'm trusting that the Lord has rightly guided me, and I let go of attachment to any outcome. The week I moved to Northampton, I found our climate action group right here in this room. At that moment, in that first meeting, I knew why I was here. When we connect with the right people who speak our language, who share our values, who are going in the same direction, our sense of purpose is affirmed. As the urgency of the climate crisis mounts, more and more people are getting together all over the world to tackle difficult earth-serving projects. As Charles Eisenstein advocates, to restore unique place-by-place relationships between humans and nature. That can't happen unless people see what's needed and have connections with one another to pull it off. You've heard how we as CAG members have affected and influenced one another, how children influenced a whole town. After so many years of working with others to bring about lasting changes, in my case particularly in the area of the rights of children, at my age I thought I could hang up my apron. Nope. The discovery of this new web in my life began on a day last fall with a visit from a fellow elder from the Art of Mentoring, who had been led by his network of friends to go hear a man talk about his work in Ecuador to protect the rainforest. Peter, who had spent months in the jungles of Peru on medicine journeys, knew right away that supporting this work of this man that he was just hearing should be his last big thing in his life. When he asked me to join him, I didn't see myself as a rainforest saving type. But I am a connector upper type, so I began to weave the web. First off, I said to Peter, talk to Gabby. She's Ecuadorian business partner of my daughter-in-law, Becca. It turned out that Gabby was born exactly where this project was centered and that she still has relatives there. And she signed on immediately. And she brought in Becca as a super organizer. And then Becca brought in the perfect man to be the treasurer, who I knew from way back. I brought in the perfect person to understand the legal and strategic needs of the organization. That's not the whole web. There were others also woven in by virtue of their past connections to one of us. So much serendipity, such an amazing convergence of people who are meant to be together in service. That's how it felt to us. And what a web it is. Now, I'm going to show you what it looks like. Imagine it as kind of a 3D drawing, since many of these connections have been built up over the years. This is a very accurate drawing. Now, the Andes Amazon Conservancy, the name of the organization, has a new board and a director of South American operations in Gabby. And Charles Eisenstein, who I introduced to Becca in 2015, is helping us to connect to financial support because he sees this as a bottom-up, not a top-down approach to rainforest preservation. I'll tell you a little bit about what it does. It protects biocorridors in the Ecuadorian rainforest by working with indigenous communities. Although they comprise less than 6% of the world's population, indigenous peoples protect 80% of the Earth's remaining biodiversity, and they have deep wisdom practices that nourish and support, rather than simply extract from the ecosystems in which they live. Open biocorridors are essential to preserving biodiversity. Adam, the man whose work Peter heard about, has been doing this work now for 4 years, pretty much single-handedly. And he has traveled by tiny plane, by canoe, and by foot, building trusting relationships one village at a time. So far, over 2.5 million acres have been committed to conservation as a result. AAC, that's the name of the organization, has a team of Ecuadorians who continue the work with the indigenous people. Once Adam, Gabby, Becca, and Peter have laid the groundwork. The people are offered training in land use planning and the technology needed to geolocate and map their territories. We deeply respect the wisdom and sovereignty of the indigenous people. They form committees to make all the decisions for their own communities. It is their own plan that we help to get registered with the government and advocate for in the constitutional courts. And by the way, if you want to read an absolutely glorious constitution, national constitution, you should read the Constitution of Ecuador. We should throw ours out and just adopt theirs whole scale. Oh, it's a thing of beauty. And the courts are now backing up indigenous rights. Because of previous bad experiences with top-down NGOs who come in and promise something that never materializes, it's taken careful relationship cultivation, returning again and again, sitting for hours, drinking chicha, which doesn't taste all that good, entering into rituals, sharing music and dance to build trusting relationships that are needed. Learning their culture and values has been so important in guiding AAC's processes. As a board, we have spent time thinking deeply about white supremacy and how it shows up in the way our Western organizations tend to function. What I'm saying here is that the most important element of a working group, of an environmental action project, of anything with a goal, is the quality of connection. AAC is one example of a project that puts that first. And the quality depends on two things: the wisdom of the people involved and their explicit intention to pay close attention to how things feel in the group, as well as the shared commitment to make any needed repair. So AAC is just one example of a project that happened to speak to me because of the people involved, as well as the mission to protect vital land from development. Perhaps you've also enjoyed working for a cause because of the quality of connections. If not, keep your antenna up. Join a group. On Climate Action Now's website, you can find at least 8 groups, each doing something different for Earth Day. More than 50 groups co-sponsored the No Pipeline rally in Springfield I went to yesterday, and Ed was there and Molly was there, and the thunder and lightning was also there, and the wind. If you think you're too old to be an activist, join anyway. Your active encouragement, interest, and support are a blessing to the youngers who are doing the heavy lifting. I guarantee this will heighten your sense of purpose. You know, the title of this whole service is The Wonder of the Web. So I'm just going to end by saying what the wonder is for me in this special web I've just joined. What makes it qualitatively different for me is that each of us on this board shares a core belief that we are carrying out instructions from a higher source, that we are part of a greater web of life, doing exactly what we should be doing without knowing, without having to know, the whys or the hows or the so then whats. We have all noticed that we are operating at a full steam level we didn't even know we were capable of. The fuel is love. I know why I'm here. And now, oh yes, we're going to have the video now. So we're going to end now by just seeing a few visuals of the project in the Andes rainforest. And then this will be your moment of silence. So as you watch these photos, just take in what you've heard this morning and see where it lives in you. And now for our final time together, we're going to just sing a joyful hymn of celebration of spring. The vision of a green world requires each one of us to dedicate ourselves unreasonably and with no guarantee of success to our unique form of service. It requires that we trust our knowing that a healed world, a greened world, is a more beautiful world that is truly possible. Charles Eisenstein.